Whichever. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jesus from the Vanguard here with the #1 subscriber, Bradley.
Hello.
Bradley's gonna do a deck profile. He's gonna deck profile his Gear Chronicle deck with us today. Post GB14. Bradley, whenever you're ready.
Alright, so the main grade 3 of this deck, which is just going to be your main ride that you always want to target, is this card, Chronojet Dragon Z. He's really good because basically he lets you stride for free if you have grade 3s in the drop zone, and you just bind them, and then his other skill is when you stride Soul Blast 1, you can send a card from any player's field to the bottom of deck, and then if you do search for a ZTB with 1 grade higher than that, and then you can call it. So basically you're plussing 3 every turn, which is really nice. So you can get a lot of, you can build up your field. Unlike Chronojet Dragon G, you can you don't have to sacrifice your own field to get the cards you want, so this is really good. Next, grade 3. Actually, I'll just go to Forerunner, and then I'll go from there. So, Forerunner is Chronojet Z. This thing is really good. It helps your deck stay really consistent. So when you ride a grade 2 or, well, it doesn't have to be ride. When you place a grade 2 or greater ZTB on your Vanguard, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, search for a grade 1 or 3, and reveal it and add it to hand. The one thing that I'm kind of disappointed about this card with is that, like, you have to bind it first, so if you don't find a grade 1 or 3, you're just minusing 1, but aside from that, it keeps your deck really consistent. If you don't have the grade 3 you need, you usually find it. If you need anything else, you usually find a PG or Stripe Fodder or things like that. So moving on. For triggers, I run 4 heals. This thing is just like the generic bind, a copy of it and itself. When you G-Guard, you can countercharge or soul charge. This is really good because it actually combos with some of your G-Guards because some of them need cards in the bind zone, and I'll go into that later. Next, 4 stands. This card is great. When it's placed, it gets a skill. At the end of the battle that your other rearguard attacked, I believe. Yeah, at the end of the battle that your unit attacked, so it can be your Vanguard too, you choose one of your other units, put it on the bottom of your deck, choose a ZTB and stand it, and put this to soul. So, it basically lets you swing extra times, and a lot of the times, a lot of these grade 2s in this deck have abilities that you'll be able to use more than once, that aren't once per turn, but are on attack, so this thing's really good for triggering those a lot. And then 8 crits, so 4 Pulsar Thruster Bison. This thing's good, you just put it to soul and give the unit 3k, and this deck needs a lot of soul since you're soul blasting at least once every turn with stride skill, and more times after that. And then 4 Pulsar Vanguard Hog. This card is also really good at combos with your G-Guards because they need bound cards, and it gives you countercharge. This deck also needs a lot of counterblasts, so I'll find first stride, like I go through almost all my counterblasts and need to use these right away. So this is really good too. Moving on to grade 1s, you run 4 Steam Tamer Arca. This is like, you don't really run anything else. It's not much of a question because this thing is by far the best PG for ZTBs. Basically, when it's placed on the guard circle, you have to discard a ZTB from your hand. So this isn't good for like non-ZTB decks, but it's really good for ZTB. So you discard a ZTB from your hand, and then you choose the unit, and it can't be hit. And then in the drop zone, if you have a copy of it in the drop zone, what you do is you bind a copy of it, and then you bind a ZTB trigger, so like all my triggers are ZTBs, and then you get to add it to hand. So it's really good at recycling itself, so you can grab it back to hand whenever you need to late game. So that's really good. Next, I run 2 Pulsar Tamer Haggled. This is kind of just like, you don't need to run this. I do because I tend to play the long game, so if you're playing the long game, I suggest running this. Don't run more than 2 because there are a lot of other good grade 1s that you'll be running over this. And I'd like to bring it down to 1, but I'm not sure how I can do that because it's a late game card, so I need it to be in my deck late game. Basically, when it's placed on rear, you can soul charge 1, and then its other skill is Soul Blast 1, put it in a unit from your drop zone on the bottom of your deck, and then counter charge 1. So it funds its own ability, and then basically you can put triggers back to your deck, really anything you need to. If you feel like you need to call out more units with your stride skill, but you don't have any in deck, you can just use that to send it back to deck. Then we have Pulsar Transit Dragon. This thing is 4-up, really good. After it boosts, if you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, you put its soul draw card. So this fuels your soul for a lot of your abilities, and it just gives you a draw. Just really good overall. After that, we run 3 Mary Block Dragons. So with Chronojet Dragon Z skill, it needs grade 3s in the drop zone, and it's pretty tough to get your grade 3s there at the beginning of the game, just because you won't have a ton in hand or anything. So what you do is you can like guard with this early on, and it counts as a grade 3 both in your deck and your drop zone. So this is really good for 2 reasons. First of all, you can bind it with Z skill to stride. And second of all, if you already have your front row filled out and your opponent only has like grade 2s or grade 2s on their field, you can send a grade 2 to the bottom of deck, and this counts as a grade 3 in your deck as well, so you can call this out from your deck. So this is really good for starting combos. Its other skill is when it boosts, it gets 2k for each of your other ZTB units. And then at the end of the battle, it binds itself, so this is also good, like anti-Messiah, like a lot of Link Joker shenanigans that would get this locked. You can just send it off the field. So this is good when you're playing against those clans. And then finally for grade 1s, I run 2 Stride Fodders. This is actually really good for the deck because you call it early game, reveal a grade 3 from your hand. It can be a Chronojet Dragon Z. You're not specifically searching for other Zs. Unless you don't have it in your hand, so like you could reveal another card and then immediately send it to the drop zone, and that way I'm securing free stride, first stride, so I can get a grade 3 in the drop zone and then use this skill to stride without minusing. You can run like 3 or 4 of this. It's just a really good card overall. I just run 2 because there's a lot of good grade 1s and 2s for this deck, so it's really tight. Moving on to grade 2s, I run 2 Pulsar Tamer Manish, it has resist on the Guardian Circle and Rear Guard if you have a ZTB Vanguard, so that's really good. And then its other skill is pretty much like a clone of this card, so when this one attacks, it gets 2k for each of your other ZTBs, and then it binds itself after. So if you have like a column of just like this card and then this card behind it, you can swing for a lot. So there's that. Next, I run 2 Spearhead Unicorns. This is it's a really good card, but a lot of the times there are other grade 2s that can multi-attack that you want out before this. It's good for when you're taking like a dust turn or something and you just want multi-attacks, like a ton of attacks. When it attacks, well, first of all, it gets 2k since you have a Chronojet Vanguard. And then when it attacks, you counterblast 1, search your deck for the same, or check the top cards of your deck. So if you have 5 ZTB units, then you'll check the top 5 cards. If you have 3 ZTB units on the field, you'll check the top 3. So it's variable, but if you have a full field, this is good. And then you get to call up to one of them. So like maybe when it attacks, counterblast 1, you can search up to anywhere between 2 and 6 units from the top of your deck and then call 1. So that's really good, especially if you don't have a lot of cards in hand. I run 4 Cruising Dragons. This is probably the grade 2 you want out most often, and it's really good to have it out first stride because when it swings, first of all, it gets 2k, just like the Spearhead Unicorn card. And when it swings, counterblast 1, check the top 3 cards of the deck, reveal a ZTB from among them, and then add it to hand. So this card, it just helps you easily secure a good hand between for when your opponent's attacking. They know they can see the cards you're putting into your hand, but a lot of times you just search for so many heals and PGs that it's not going to matter if your opponent knows, just because your hand's so strong. And then rounding up grade 2s, Pulsar Metal Party Dragon. This is your main ride target for grade 2 since it's at a 10k. base. Its skills are on Van and Rearguard. It can attack if the number of cards in your bind zone is 0, but that's okay because when you ride a grade 2, you can bind this card right off the bat, so you don't have to worry about this not being able to attack on the Vanguard. Its other skill is when it attacks, at the end of the battle that it was boosted, Counterblast 1, bind it, and then call a grade 1 and 3 ZTB to the same column. So yeah, basically you just get extra attacks with this. It's pretty similar to Unicorn. And then finally for grade 3s, I run 2 Pulsar Replenish Quaddle. If I find that like I counterblasted a lot on my opponent's turn with G-Guards and things like that, I can use Stride Skill to call this out, and it's actually, it gets 3k, and then it countercharges 1 if I have no face-up cards in my damage zone. So this is a really good card to call out with Stride Skill, so you can just start your combos. And finally, I run 1 Pulsar Proceed Sheet. This card you really only need to run 1 of because you take it out of your deck pretty early in the game, and like maybe first Stride, you use Stride Skill, bring this out, Counterblast 1, find a unit from your drop zone, and this unit, and you draw a card. So it's just early game draw, and it's pretty GB as well. And then moving on to the G zone, I run 2 Metapulsar Split Pegasus cards. This is really good. It's always the card you want to go into first Stride. It helps you easily round up a huge field and gets you all the cards you want. So it has the ability act once per turn, Counterblast 1, and Persona Flip. Choose one of your rear cards, return it to your deck. So you can take a grade 3 card and send it back to your deck. And then you can search for any 2 grade 2s. So what I usually do first Stride is I'll send a grade 3 back and then search for 2 of these and just make my hand giant. It's pretty hard to deal with for the rest of the game. So that's always going to be your first Stride option. Next, I run 2 Metapulsar Avenir Phoenix cards. This is, you generally go into this when you don't have a lot of cards in hand and you can't do much. When it attacks, you Counterblast 1 and Persona Flip. Check top 5 cards of your deck and call 2 for every face-up card in your G-Zone. So this can fill up your field easily if you only have like a grade, if you don't have a hand or only have like a grade 2 in your hand, you can call the grade 2, swing with it, and then swing with this and build up your field again. And its other abilities, all ZTB rear guards get +2. So, and then one thing I forgot about this card, in the G zone it gives all your front row ZTBs +1k, so you have like a really consistent power boost going along for the rest of the game. Alright, so I run 4 Chronojet gear next. This is your restanding Vanguard, and its effect is really good against Link Joker and clans like that because its skill is Act once per turn, GB2, Soul Blast 1, and Persona Flip. And then it gets the skill at the end of the battle that it attacks once per turn. If your heart card is a Gear Dragon, which it'll almost always be, Chronojet Dragon Z, choose 3 cards from your rear guard or your hand, and this doesn't have to be 3 cards from your hand or your rear guard. You could mix it up like 1 card from your hand and 2 from your rear, and you send them all back to the deck, and then you can stand your Vanguard and it gets drive -2. And its other ability is during its second battle it gets +10k power and +1 drive. So first it swings for triple drive, you send 3 cards back, and then it swings for twin drive with an additional 10k. So this is a really good beater if your opponent's hand is pretty small. I usually go into this. Next I run 1 Chronovisor Heritage. This card is a really good late game card, so if you have 4 face-up ZTBs in your G zone, and almost all your G units are ZTBs, so you don't have to worry about that. So you can do this second or third stride. Basically, you just stride into this, play your turn normally, and at the end of your turn, when it goes to your G zone, you turn 4 face-up ZTBs face down, stride this on your Vanguard, and you get an extra turn. And the cool thing about this card is you almost never get to do this more than once, but if you do have 8 ZTBs, you can actually do this twice. So take turn 1, it goes to your G zone, you take 4, flip them face down, stride it again, and then you can repeat the process again to get 3 or even 4 turns in a row. That's really good. And then finally for G units, I run 1 Zeroth Dragon of End of the World Dust. Pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's a really good finisher if you can't heritage yet. I would usually go into this. So when it's placed on Vanguard, Counterblast 2, all your opponent's grades and power decrease to 1. So this, and it gets rid of all opponent's abilities. I'm pretty sure this includes intercepts, I think. So your opponent can't intercept either. And then if your opponent has 4 or less damage, you actually deal 1 damage to them. So if your opponent's at like 4 damage and you can't go into Heritage yet, I would go into this. And then you can use combos with like Split Pegasus or Metal Party Dragon to swing for a lot of attacks, because your opponent can only guard with grade 0s and grade 1s from hand. And then moving on to G Guardians, I actually run 6 G Guardians because there's a lot of really good ones, and so you have to have a lot of variety. I run 1 Hetero Round Dragon. I've considered running 2, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that do run 2, but with the new G Guard that came out in GT14, it's better to have 1. So when it's placed on the guard circle, Soul Blast 1 if you have a Vanguard with Chronojet. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards to send it back to deck, shuffle, and then call it top part of their deck to rear. This is really good against plans that have a lot of combo potential, like No Grappler, Aqua Force, things like that. You can kind of shut it down. So yeah, this is just a really good card overall. Next, I run 2 Retroactive Time Maiden Luru. This card's really good. It guards for 20k usually. Just when it's placed on the guard circle, choose a normal unit and a trigger unit, send them back to your deck and it gets 5k. You don't have to choose a normal unit and a trigger unit. You can actually just choose a trigger unit. If you do, it just won't get the 5k, so you can use it to deck then too. So that's good. I run 2 Pulsar Saber Elishu. This is the only Gear Chronicle G Guardian that is a Zodiac Time Beast, so you can actually flip it down with Heritage's skill, and it guards for a lot too. So when it's placed on the guard circle, Soul Blast 1. If you have 1 or more cards in your bind zone, it gets 5k. Then if you have 5 or more cards in your bind zone, it gets 15. So this is guarding for 35 mid and late game. And then you can go into Heritage the next turn and flip them back down. So it's good to, between first and second stride, sometimes you can just go into 2 of those. And then you'll have 4 face of ZTBs if you went into Split Pegasus first turn, and then you can Heritage. And then finally, the last card, Time Maiden of Eternity Uluru. This is a really good card. I used to not like it that much. It guards for far more than any other card, any other G guard that Gear Chronicle has does. But now you can flip up this card, and since it's ZTB, it helps further your Heritage turns. So it's really good because it late game guards for a stupid amount. You don't run more than 1 though, because after you Heritage, you have like no face-up G units, and this is just a counterblast for almost nothing. So yeah, that would be it.
Thanks Bradley for the deck profile. So you can expect this one coming up pretty soon, fellas. I mean, obviously, because you're watching it. So yeah, thanks for doing the deck profile, Bradley.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.